Irina, I-R-I-N-A. Irina Radishkanaya was a poet, and she was jailed by the Soviets for her poetry, which was rebellious and a dissident. And she was put into a jail and forbidden to write her poetry. I mean, this to me is the height of madness, is when you ask an artist not to create anything. How do you remain a free person? You can't even write. So she took a bar of soap in prison with a matchstick. She'd write down her poems. And if the guard had come around, she'd wash it off. And the guard would leave, she'd write down her poem again until she had them memorized. And so she was in a prison, but she wasn't. You can't put me in a space smaller than that which I've always occupied, my own body. I am a free man. I will always be a free man. So I puzzled over this for a long time. How could I convey that in a piece of sculpture? So I wanted to express something about that bar of soap, and that it's in a cage, and yet at the same time I designed the cage that it's free, it actually can leave. And it's in Russian letters on the top. It says voice, which is the title of one of her poems, which is, she refers to voice as the voice you hear in your head of your conscience. So that's what art means to me. That's what I think it represents what an artist is. Somebody who won't be broken, who is free, who will find a way to be free, which doesn't mean that it's easy, which doesn't mean that you live in Soho and are in cool clothes and hanging out with all the cool people and the millionaires who collect art and go into parties every night. I don't know what that is, but it has nothing to do with, to me, it has nothing to do with the condition of being free and being an artist. I'm 73, so you meet me at 73, living in this contemporary house, nice house and nice furniture and everything else. And that's sort of, gee, it's just the life of an artist. But you didn't meet me at 30 when I was sleeping on the floor in my studio in Detroit, you know? I thought this through when I was probably 20 something. I thought I will do any kind of honorable work. And I think there's lots of honorable work to do. I don't think there's work that's beneath you to do it. I did do all kinds of carpentry and other kinds of manual labor things, a big part of my life. With whatever time I have left, I will do my artwork. Somebody asked me to try teaching some art classes, university classes. It never even occurred to me to do it, and I liked it. My studio had always been in Detroit, rented in some hovel someplace. As a sculptor, I wanted to do large pieces. You can't do it very well in a place that, you know, in a cityscape. Where do you store it? How do you build it? How do you move it? A suburb, everyone complains. Why are you putting that thing up in your backyard? So, the country. So I built a house with a studio in it. And I love to be outdoors, and I love the neutrality of it. It was a place without definition, so I could define it myself. I'm addicted to creating. I'm somebody who finds great excitement in creative work. This is a piece called Transcending that I did in downtown Detroit on Hart Plaza. This commemorates the Michigan labor unions. Chrysler asked me what would I do for a monumental piece of sculpture. And it's a segment of a giant gear bursting through the earth. It's called Polaris Ring. The building behind it is the State of Michigan Library. And I lined up the major stone in the inside to the North Star. because the North Star is what everyone, Native American and European, used to navigate in Michigan. This Four Corners project, I'm putting down the outer corners of a tetrahedron inside of the world, and that you don't have to go visit it, you don't have to see it. And that can be owned by everybody, therefore owned by nobody. So I've been out here, and something came up in the city, and a couple different people from the city stopped. They probably drove by and saw some stuff out here. David Landry, the former mayor, is one of them, and I showed him some catalogs and some other things, and he said, we didn't even know, such a person lived here. So he said, we'd like to do more. How can we do more of this? I could see that they had a different vision than I thought the leaders had for this town. And it's a vision that I share. So the more we talked, the more it became a possibility of something. What I started to say with my sweet wife here and other things we were doing, we're going to say, what's going to happen when we die? Which we don't think is going to be that far away. Many artists burn their lifetime work. They don't know what to do. If you give it away to people who don't appreciate it, it's even worse than destroying it. And we started talking about how could this house be used? Well, the city could use it for conferences and for special meetings. I see it very much as what I'd love is artist residencies, that people can come in from other countries, could live here for 6 months, a musician, a theater person, a poet, I don't care. Doesn't have to be a sculptor. They're very enthused about this. Now, not every community would be. I said to them, I want to encourage them to have more cultural things. I want to be supportive of that right from the start. I said, I'll do a series of lectures if that helps. So I wanted to talk about prehistoric art. I wanted to talk about different ways of seeing 20th century art. Show some of mine, some of other kinds of things. At least an introduction to different ways of seeing things, and hope that other artists can do the same thing. Other people are invited in. Everything I make, everything, can be remade. If that piece became something that 8 people wanted, theoretically 8 people could have it. It's taking it away from an aristocratic object where there's only one and only one person can own it. And that to me is central from the moment I started conceiving of something. Why is it that a forgery becomes empty? The value is in the concept. In my class, sometimes I would pass around the light bulb. Say, what do you think of this? Well, nothing. It's a light bulb. It's really pretty boring. It's nothing at all. Now, I said, what if that was Edison's first light bulb? Woo, man, this is like, whoa. So its value is in its history, not in the light bulb. Well, I'm trying to say things can be in the light bulb, in the concept. There's pieces that are committed to Novi, and I think there's going to be a couple more that aren't here. I do think those should probably be covered. It would be good to have that probably filmed and talked about. Equikenosis. The columns at kenosis were flared at the top going down. And I took that column that was this way and reversed it going that way. And I put a sort of lens on the top of that would focus the light coming through. So when the light would come through at exactly the angle of the equinox. It had a piece on the ground that would register that. Isaiah. I love basketball, I love playing it. What I was interested in depicting something about it was not illustrating Isaiah Thomas, but illustrating his magic, which is what he did with the ball. Source. What you're seeing sort of looks like an egg, except it's out of granite, and it's hovering over water as a symbol of life and source and creativity. Well, Galileo is somebody I find fascinating. For a man who apparently only looked at the moon 8 times, reached astounding conceptions of what was going on. And what I did was take a sort of a sphere of the moon, I flattened it out, which is, after all, the way we actually sense the moon. The classic symbol of an empire for thousands of years now has been the obelisk. You see how the inevitable doom of it all, the price of maintaining an empire, which is vast. We have to think about it. We have to think about what empire means. All these things change. Sun swirl. I love the characteristic of tangents that you are using. Straight elements and defining curved space. It's facing east, so when the morning sun comes up, and it's kind of waiting for it. You know, it's sort of an echo of a rising sun. Koan is kind of a meditative sort of puzzle. It doesn't have a correct answer. It has a response. So Koan, what it represents to me, is a spiritual quest. I'd love to see it 20 or 25 feet high and on the edge of one of the Great Lakes. The arts to me are a way of getting your bearings back. If I've gone through something very hard, a great painting, a great poem will lift me up. As time goes on, I believe more and more in community and doing things right where you live, and facing problems that are right here and getting the energy that's right here. The arts can play a role in all of that, and that's my message that I want to work on in these years.